Last night, in a stunning display of asymmetric warfare, Ukraine executed a meticulously planned raid deep inside Russian territory. For just $412,000, a swarm of ingeniously modified drones faced off against Russia's formidable multi-billion-dollar air defense network. What followed was a masterclass in tactical deception. The drones bypassed the advanced S-400 systems, crippled major oil refineries, and vaporized millions of dollars worth of military hardware. Here we will see how Ukraine used low-cost technology and strategic genius to inflict a devastating and humiliating blow, proving that the real cost of war isn't always measured in dollars. At 3:47 a.m., the initial phase of the operation commenced as four long-range unmanned aerial vehicles, identified as UJ-26 Beaver drones, approached the outskirts of Moscow. The drones flew at a low altitude and maintained a speed of 380 km per hour, navigating toward one of Russia's largest oil refineries near Ryazan. The primary air defense for this sector consisted of a formidable S-400 Triumph surface-to-air missile on SAM battery. According to reports, radar operators initially misclassified the incoming drones as their flight characteristics appeared on screens as a non-threatening anomaly, much like a flock of birds in a tight formation. The tactical sequence unfolded with calculated precision. At a distance of 52 km from the refinery, and just 27 km from the S-400 battery, the lead Beaver drone executed a sharp climb, rapidly ascending to an altitude of 800 m. This was a deliberate maneuver designed to elicit a definitive response from the S-400 system. The battery commander, presented with a closing threat and a narrow 14-second window to decide between engagement and potential misidentification, authorized a launch. On his command, two 48 N6DM interceptor missiles, each valued at approximately $2 million, launched from their tubes, capable of accelerating to Mach 6 within seconds. However, the Ukrainian operational plan had anticipated this exact reaction. Immediately after triggering the launch, the Beaver drones executed a steep dive, descending back to an altitude of 200 m and vanishing below the S-400's radar horizon. The 48 N6DM missiles utilize a semi-active radar homing guidance system, which requires continuous illumination of the target by the ground-based engagement radar. Once the drones dropped below the radar's line of sight, the guidance signal was lost. The missile's onboard computers attempted to predict the drone's flight path based on their last known position, but the abrupt change in altitude made these predictions inaccurate. The interceptors detonated their 180 kg fragmentation warheads approximately 80 m above the drone's former position, scattering shrapnel through empty air. With the primary long-range defense system neutralized, the refinery's final line of defense, two Pantsir S-1 point defense systems, had a mere 17 seconds to acquire and engage the incoming threats. The Pantsir's 1 RS-21E radar, which operates on UHF and EHF bands, is optimized for larger targets. The drones, with a radar cross-section of about 0.1 square meters, appeared as intermittent and faint contacts at a range of 8 km. As operators struggled to maintain a stable lock, the system's hydraulic turret, which needs 3.2 seconds to traverse 180 degrees, was slow to react. By the time the two A-38M cannons could be aimed, the lead Beaver had already struck its intended target. The other three drones then hit their targets in sequence, setting off a cascading series of explosions that engulfed an estimated 140,000 tons of petroleum. The resulting fire burned for over 72 hours, effectively reducing Moscow's regional fuel supply by an estimated 40%, and achieving the initial strike's strategic objective of degrading Russian logistical capabilities. Minutes later at 4:03 a.m., a second larger wave of 12 drones near the Novik-Kubyshev oil refinery located 470 km away. Alerted by the previous attack, Russian air defense crews at this site were on high alert. The facility was defended by three Pantsir S-1 batteries arranged in a triangular formation to provide overlapping fields of fire. The commanders, having studied previous Ukrainian tactics, were confident in their ability to neutralize this new threat. The Ukrainian planners, however, had prepared a complex electronic warfare and decoy strategy. As the drone swarm approached, 4 of the 12 UAVs suddenly climbed to an altitude of 1,500 m, intentionally exposing themselves to Russian radar. At the same time, these 4 drones deployed corner reflectors, which are simple triangular aluminum devices engineered to generate a powerful and distinct radar return. The radar signature of the drones was transformed, mimicking the aspect ratio, speed, and frequency response of a much larger, higher-priority target, a Kh-1001 cruise missile. The Pantsir's classification system immediately flagged these contacts as a primary threat, compelling the battery commander to follow engagement protocols that prioritize cruise missiles above all else. Within 12 seconds, 857 E-6 missiles were launched at the 4 decoy targets. As the missiles closed in, the decoys began to release additional reflectors at 2 C intervals, creating the illusion of multiplying targets on the Russian radar displays. The missiles guided by command link were directed toward what appeared to be high-G maneuvering cruise missiles, a feat impossible for an actual KH-1001. An estimated $3 million worth of advanced interceptors was expended on simple aluminum foil. While the Pantsir systems were engaged with the high-altitude decoys, the actual attack began. 8 UJ-22 drones had used the distraction to approach the refinery from the opposite direction at an altitude of only 50 m. This tactic exploited a critical vulnerability of the Pantsir S-1. Its phased array radar is fixed to its turret and has a limited electronic steering range of 45 degrees left or right. To engage a threat from the rear, the entire 30 kg turret must physically rotate, a process that takes 4.7 seconds. The attack was timed flawlessly. The UJ-22s were already inside the 1.2 km minimum engagement range of the 57 E-6 missiles, which require 1.5 seconds of flight time to arm their proximity fuses, the system's last line of defense. Its twin 30M2A 38M cannons opened fire. However, the drones were programmed with a dynamic altitude variation routine, making random changes between 40 and 80 m. This tactic defeated the Pantsir's predictive fire control computer, reducing the hit probability from a theoretical 83% to just 31%. While one drone was destroyed, 7 others penetrated the defenses. They struck their targets precisely as the Pantsir batteries were entering their 90-second automated reloading cycle, a period of complete vulnerability. The Novokubyshev refinery sustained multiple direct hits. The operation's third element took shape at 4:18 a.m. As 6 UJ-26 Beaver drones approached a target near Voron. This time they were confronted by a Krasuka-4 electronic warfare system. Upon activation, the Krasuka-4 saturated the electromagnetic spectrum with 500 watts of directed energy, completely cutting off the drone's GPS and communication links. The jamming signal was estimated to be 5 quadrillion times stronger than the satellite-based GPS signal the drones depend on for navigation. The UAVs automatically switched to their inertial navigation systems. However, after a flight of 380 km over 68 minutes, the gyroscopic drift inherent in the INS had introduced a potential targeting error of up to 200 m, a margin that would cause the mission to fail. One drone acting as the lead initiated a terminal guidance protocol using an electro-optical sensor to match the terrain below with a preloaded satellite image. It identified its target not by the fuel tanks themselves, but by the unique geometric pattern created by the intersection of their shadows. With its target lock secured, but unable to communicate, the drone resorted to a frequency-hopping spread spectrum transmission. It broadcast a 128-byte data packet with GPS coordinates and impact timing across 1,000 different frequencies per second in a pseudo-random sequence. For a single microsecond on one channel, the transmission found a gap in the Krasuka-4's jamming. The other 5 drones received the data fragment, corrected their courses, and successfully struck the target at 4:20. Simultaneously, an even more audacious strike was developing against the Primorsko-Akhtatsk military airfield, a primary base for Russian Shad-136 drone operations. The base was defended by a diamond formation of 4 Tor-M2 air defense vehicles and 2 patrolling Su-35 fighters. At 4:32 a.m., an initial wave of 8 UJ-22s approached, flying in a sinusoidal trajectory. This weaving pattern was designed to introduce process noise into the Tor-M2's common filter-based fire control solution, compounding small errors over time. As all 4 Tor systems launched a total of 16 9mm338 missiles, the drones executed a sudden 6G vertical climb. This extreme maneuver caused the missiles' aerodynamic control surfaces to stall, making them uncontrollable. While one drone was destroyed by a proximity fuse detonation, the entire engagement acted as a high-altitude diversion. While all Russian defensive systems were focused on the initial wave, a second wave of 4 UJ-26 Beavers, having flown 700 km over the Sea of Azov at an altitude of just 5 m, crossed the coastline undetected. They remained below the radar horizon, rendering them invisible to ground-based systems. They struck the Shad storage hangars, which were left completely undefended. The resulting explosions and fires destroyed an estimated 200 Shad-136 drones, a material loss valued at over $6 million. The final and deepest strike of the night took place at 4:44 a.m. 2 UJ-26 Beavers, specially modified with auxiliary fuel tanks instead of a portion of their warhead, reached a target in Penza, 630 km inside Russia. An Su-35 fighter on patrol acquired the drones at a range of 43 km and launched 2 R-77 active radar homing missiles. As the missiles approached, The drones performed complex barrel roll maneuvers while varying their altitude in an attempt to induce gimbal lock in the missile seekers. The tactic was unsuccessful against one missile, which achieved a direct impact, destroying one drone. The second R-77's proximity fuse detonated near the remaining Beaver, severely damaging it. Despite the damage, the drone's flight computer remained functional. It made a final course correction and at 4:46 a.m. crashed into a critical semiconductor fabrication plant. The 15 kg warhead combined with the impact destroyed the facility's clean room, vaporizing high-value electron beam lithography and ion implantation equipment. This single strike effectively paralyzed Russia's domestic military-grade microchip production for an estimated minimum of 6 months. The cumulative effect of this multi-pronged operation was strategically significant. For an expenditure of approximately $412,000 on drones, Ukraine inflicted tens of millions of dollars in direct monetary damage, severely disrupted fuel, our logistics, and crippled a vital component of Russia's military-industrial complex. The attacks necessitated a large-scale redeployment of critical Russian air defense assets from frontline areas to protect strategic sites in the rear, thereby creating new battlefield opportunities. The operation demonstrated that virtually no location in European Russia is beyond the reach of Ukrainian assets. Understanding these complex engagements requires a deep dive into both strategy and technology. Our channel is dedicated to unraveling these intricacies. If you appreciate this level of detailed analysis and want to stay informed on the technological shifts shaping global conflicts, subscribing is the best way to ensure you don't miss our future reports.